So for January 8th, we are talking about how many of us who have left evangelical Christianity specifically were taught that emotions are dangerous, they're unreliable, or they're signs of weakness of some sort. And today we're going to explore three very different ways emotions, hope, and sacrifice are understood, and what each one trains us to do with our inner world. Hi, I'm Candy. I'm a hypnotherapist who's deconstructing from evangelical Christianity, and I know how mindset shapes our behavior. So, in this series, I'm going to share my daily reflections from three different devotionals. The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo, and that one's a little more spiritual, non religious. Also, Jesus Calling by Sarah Young, which is a very modern Christian approach. And My Utmost for His Highest by Oswald Chambers, which is a very classic Christian angle. My goal is to help you see how each one of these devotionals or these day books might shape your mindset a little differently. And if you're into that kind of reflection, please like and follow for more. Let's get started. All right, for January 8th in the day or the Book of Awakening, he talks about that no matter if you're suffering, no matter what emotion you're feeling, that your heart still knows where to find what it needs. It will still look. So basically saying like guidance doesn't disappear just because you're going through something difficult. The heart will continue to orient you, and it will use emotions to tell you where you are. So if you want to shift into some sort of better feeling state, or if you want to stay in that state, maybe it feels right to stay in that state of sadness. You don't want to get stuck in any emotion, and your emotions do not they're not meant to guide you. They're meant to just tell you where you are. And then you can make a decision on if you want to move. Without force, the heart just naturally will move toward nourishment and direction. And sometimes we might want to speed this up, but sometimes we need to stay in a state of sadness, or sometimes we need to stay in a state of anger for a little period of time. Maybe something was just, we are rightfully angry about something, and we need to, that anger then will move us to a place of action that is healthy if we allow it to move through the body, not stuck where we ruminate on it. And we need to begin to shift ourselves towards solutions to our problems. Ruminating on our problems or focusing on the problem, being problem focused, can get us stuck. But eventually, even that stuckness will lead us to movement of some sort. So either we seek help, maybe need a therapist or a hypnotherapist, something like someone like me, but you need some sort of, or just getting up and going for a walk or journaling or screaming at the top of your lungs. I've done that before. Or sometimes I will find myself when I'm really stressed, find like the moment there's like a pause, I will spontaneously let out a deep sigh, like, and my husband used to misread that and think I was stressed, or I was trying to get a message across to him saying, hey, I'm doing too much and you're not. And it's not what it is. It was just a release my body needed to take. And he's learned that now. But so emotions tell us where we are, not what we need to do. They're messengers, not guides that we're required to follow. And when we listen without obeying them blindly, we can gain information. We can gain choice. Now we know what to do, or at least we have options. We know where we are. And then you begin to trust yourself. You listen to your intuition. So it's super helpful. And something you can practice kind of on your own is to sit with your eyes closed and your hands kind of open in your lap, and then bring your hands up to your mouth without opening your eyes, and just notice that without your eyes open, your hands know what to do. And then take your hands from your mouth to your heart and notice that your heart and your hands, they'll line up together. And you can keep this as a picture in your heart, in your head, to just remind yourself that your heart is always paying attention. It's orienting itself, and you can listen to those emotions to see where you are. And sometimes it would be healthy to sit down and talk to someone about what you're feeling and why you're feeling that. Help have a sounding board to process that with. And even better, or in addition, is journal. Write it out. I'm feeling this today. And then start talking to yourself. I'm not sure why, or this is what it feels in my body. My body feels tight, and I'm wondering if I can relax it. And maybe you take a deep breath and you begin to notice things shifting. It's just about awareness, noticing, and paying attention. And in Jesus calling, this is kind of the idea of this is just that hope, if you hold on to hope, it will prevent you from feeling certain feelings like depression or self-pity. So Jesus is kind of described as this infinite power, and yet he is very tender with weakness, which I do like. But the weaker you are, the more softly he will approach, which that can make someone want to be in a state of weakness all the time. And weakness is kind of subjective here too, because it doesn't mean like physically weak. It means like you're kind of feeling close to probably hopelessness, um, having nothing. And in that moment, that feels really nice. It really does, to have someone who's going to be gentle with you, because you need gentleness in those moments. But in Jesus calling, hope is portrayed as something that you cling to in the darkness, that you hold on to, because that's what will keep you from feeling depression or self-pity. Um, and the tighter you hold to it, the more, you'll feel his presence. And it just puts the burden, that mindset becomes, you're responsible for maintaining hope, even if you don't feel it. If you feel hopeless, you cannot share that. You keep that to yourself. You bury that. Hopelessness is also treated as just, it's dangerous. It's not informative. It doesn't give you any information. Like, okay, if I'm feeling hopeless, why am I feeling hopeless? See, if you really actually are honest about hopelessness, you'll go, well, do I have no hope? Is that true? And maybe you might go through some sort of process, either through journaling or hypnotherapy, or, just in your own thoughts, to ask yourself these questions. Or maybe you can find something that makes you feel a little bit of hope in your body. Um, getting help if you need it. But in Jesus calling, it's just this dangerous thing that just, this message, I think, increases shame and encourages emotional suppression, which is not healthy. And finally, in my utmost for his highest, this is a different message that I do not agree with, as I've deconstructed from Christianity, but I remember this kind of teaching. So it's basically that God desires your life to be a living sacrifice. So you're constantly in this state of sacrifice. And the more you give up, the more devotion it proves. But God doesn't want you to just give up things. That's not the point. He wants you to give it up because it it's you're giving it up for a life with him. So the worth of it is tied to surrendering what you value in order to have this life with him. It's almost a complete detachment from things in life, which I do agree that you don't want to be attached to things. And I think I've said this in another devotion before. But first of all, that attachment will wane naturally. It really will. It might take longer in some cases, and be quicker in others. But um, and even in that, it teaches you something, because nothing stays the same, right? We all know that. If you've lived more than 10 years, you've noticed that things change. And what this does is it basically has you give up things before you even get a chance to enjoy them in some ways. I mean, I remember that kind of feeling, like, just don't enjoy it because you don't get to. And it's almost felt like a sin to enjoy things. At least that's how I felt. And I was a devout Christian for over 30 years, homeschooling my children. I saved myself for marriage, sexually. I gave up all the things that I would have done. When I was dating, it was specifically, I'm looking for a marriage partner. I did date a few guys, and that was always in the back of my mind. Like, I'm sure I'll share some of those stories as I go along, but I definitely tried to sacrifice everything. I didn't want to homeschool, but I was taught that that was the ideal, and you'll have the best, most godly children if you homeschool. Well, it was not. There was good in it. I have found good in it, but I don't regret teaching my children to read, but I could have done that and not homeschooled. Um, but I did it because I was sacrificing myself. I was giving up all of my dreams to completely absorb myself into getting these children to become Christ-like. And that devotion in this type of, in the utmost for his highest, it basically makes devotion take on this formulaic, this metric system, which causes comparison. And what would be natural to just serve somebody just because you love them, not because you're trying to get good with God, it becomes performative, which takes a lot of energy. It taxes the nervous system to pretend you like something when you don't, but you're doing it for God. So finally, I would say that the Book of Awakening, it's listening to emotions as information. In the Jesus Calling, it's kind of treating hope specifically as a protection from certain emotions like depression. And then in my utmost, it kind of replaces like trusting yourself, being able to use your own intuition and listen, as just try to prove your sacrifice, try to prove your devotion to God through sacrifice. So the first one, Book of Awakening, is a listening. Emotions are to be listened to. In Jesus Calling, you're supposed to cling to a specific emotion and not let the others get in the way. Don't ask questions, just cling. And then in my utmost, emotions are basically ignored, and you just perform no matter what you feel. So choose what resonates with you today. Let what fits stay, let the rest go. And if you're interested in getting some help and you'd like to see a hypnotherapist, I would love to work with you. And the links to that are in the description. Remember, you get to decide what you devote your thinking to today. You might not be able to control every thought that comes in, but you can definitely decide what you entertain. And whether it comes from something I've said today or something completely different, choose wisely and set an intention that truly benefits you and those around you. And if you found any value here today, don't forget to like and follow. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and let's keep our minds on what helps us love ourselves and each other a little bit better every day.